All right, thanks for the interview, Edge Runners. We'll let you know once we've made a decision. All right, it looks like that's the last interview for the day. We have a few good candidates for what shows we're going to review this month, and they all seem pretty promising.
No, we have one more.
Uh, I don't have the paperwork.
I sent the paperwork to your email. And it's one of my cousin's friends, and I owe him a favor, so if you could just maybe...
Okay, wait, hang on. This says they have a history of sexual misconduct?
Right, but I owe my cousin a favor, so...
We can't do this. Mob Psycho just got a new season. I just talked to Edge Runners. They gave a great interview. Why don't we give one of them a slot?
Come on. Okay, sorry I'm late.
Pen. Waifu candy.
Hey, listen, I'm sorry we had to do this.
Don't. Let's just get this over with. We realized we haven't actually introduced ourselves, so locked in a room, I'm Rat.
I'm Liar.
So you know how last month we covered a show that looked like some boob-covered rom-com garbage and then actually turned out to be a thoughtful production made by a talented team that had nothing to do with ecchi nonsense? Sort of like someone leaving a flaming bag of dog poop on your porch, only for it to actually have a handmade gift inside, and so you feel a little bit guilty about just smashing it before seeing what was inside? Well, they're back, and this time they actually left poop.
And not just metaphorical poop. This series is aggressively bad, and it's maddening in its sentiments about women, children, its audience, and anime as an art form. We're not going to beat around the bush with this one.
Spoiler-free plot rundown. Boobs. Anyway.
Oh, come on, we gotta go. We gotta do the thing.
Okay, fine. The main character is given fantastical magic powers with the caveat that they're powered by pervert points.
So the rest of the show is just increasingly contrived peril to get woman respecter over here to ogle, grope, and make out with the rest of the women in the cast and accrue enough pervert points to save the day.
What you see is definitely what you get here. There's no surprise turnaround where they make a point about exploitation or doing bad things for the greater good. It's just staggeringly uncomfortable softcore hentai the whole way through. Don't watch it.
Sadly, Rhett is right here. While there's nothing wrong with sexuality, this show is really disgusting, rapey, and misogynistic, and the rest of the runtime that you see down there is mostly going to be us just beating the shit out of the show. No holds bar.
Before spoilers, the formalities. We will not be recounting the plot, as by proceeding we assume you have seen the series. The following will be spoiled. The hidden dungeon only I can enter. Our score for the show was a 1 out of 10. Some minor discussion of sexual exploitation of minors to follow, by the way. Viewer discretion slightly advised. Alright, spoilers. Let's go. Can we just go ahead and start with the obvious here? We can talk about the actual substance, what little there is, after we talk about the thing that takes up the most of the runtime.
Ecchi, fan service, a core tenet of the anime medium.
Softcore pornography.
Yep. But with anime already awash with this pandering nonsense, we can just give this a pass. No need to call out the systematic problem being depicted here, right?
We do, though, especially when it's so malicious. Make no mistake, the only, and I mean the only reason for this to exist is to depict the, women in the series as a piece of meat for the ever-so-charming 16-year-old main character to foam at the mouth over and sexually exploit. Real classy.
Let's keep this disgusting train rolling. Not only will there be sexual promiscuity, but there will also be incest, pedophilia. No. I meant pedophilia. Quid pro quo, and like weird fantasizing about smells.
I feel like at this point that it's worth mentioning that despite being battered by a barrage of boobs and butts, we're not going to be able to keep track of all of the creepy shit that happened during the show, nor would I really want to. Let's just get to the point, and I hope you can take my word for it.
I want to briefly emphasize the awful attitude towards women. Not that I should have to fucking look at it, but I have some observations that go past mere nude calendar photos. But now that we bring up those nude calendar photos, let's talk about the camera.
Whenever one of the cardboard cutouts enters the scene, the main character gives them a once-over, because he's a piece of shit. And this is shown by the camera focusing on his point of attention. But when we're introduced to the cleric, the camera, seemingly of its own volition, just makes itself comfortable.
While this is obviously bad camera work, yada yada, I would be remiss to mention that we as an audience are being given this camera angle because, sex? The main character isn't in this scene, so we're not being communicated to in any way. The camera isn't trying to tell us anything. Well, it is. It's trying to tell us about this, I guess.
And later we're given a stomach-churning episode featuring a toddler and imagery such as this. Are you having fun yet? I would describe episode 8 as telling of the depraved and disgusting nature of this show, but we've been told before. At this point, it's shouting.
We're now going to get away from the nudity a little bit and talk about the super fun subject of women being depicted as objects, like when she's submitted as a prize by two feuding men without her input. I didn't say we were getting far from the nudity.
How about another super fun fantasy adventure where our main character offers a girl more power in exchange for sexual favors? Why aren't you laughing? It's a comedy.
Oh, one more. How about when in episode 10, all of the guys go, "Hey, women, support us, men from the back," when up until this point, all of the women, sans this one, have been shown to have melee weapons, and self-insert Joe here to cast ranged spells? That's a head-scratcher, isn't it?
Her actual name is Olivia Servant. I trust I don't need to elaborate on that one.
So, that's what we're dealing with here. A tired and mean-spirited depiction of women from a team that is either complicit in how they're viewed in society right now, or actively interested in perpetuating it. Enough said. Well, what? You want to hear about the story? Why? Were you not listening a second ago? We're not gonna do that,
No,
Ed.
we gotta.
No! Okay, so there's all the stuff that we just mentioned. And now we're going to talk about the plot beats and story. Okay.
First of all, this premise is obviously lazy. The Great Sage thing is just a blank check to move the plot forward. The pervert point system is stupid and obtuse. Anything else the show tries to explain just goes in one ear and out the other. It doesn't really help that the way this exposition is delivered is just dumped on you, seemingly at random.
Even though I don't want to entertain the events of this show at all, any discussion of them must begin with tone. And it's strange how poorly the tone was handled here, given that this is just a show about boobs and nothing else.
For example, the episode where a death curse is put on a 15-year-old girl to die on her 16th birthday is preceded by this sequence. Not to mention the fact that the curse and its origins are explained to us in some clip-art-ass flashbacks.
While the events of the show crawl along, it needs some way other than nudity to beg for your attention. And it does so in the form of jokes. Mostly it's just the dad yelling. Or maybe the fact that these situations are unexpectedly sexual is supposed to be funny. I don't know. I'm not sure.
And even if we accept this shitty system of life points in exchange for sex, then I'd like to address the scene where Nora adds rarely to his lucky skill. Why? Why would you do this? I thought life points were a good thing. You've never had an issue exploiting women for them up until now.
On top of that, if you took the fantasy premise that was pitched to you seriously at all, you'd be posed with even more questions, like the sequence in the ball where the light goes out, but our guy has a light spell, or the sequence where they're in the bathhouse and they're chasing somebody, and he's not going to use his ranged rock throw that he's been using for the whole show.
Also, I hope you didn't actually want to meet any of these characters, because they're whisked out of the story seemingly at random. For example, one of the early episodes centers around this lady and getting to know her, and ultimately letting her take credit for killing the Grim Reaper instead of the main character. And after that, she's just gone? That's really going to help audience investment. Just waste time.
There's your quarter-assed takedown of the story. I'm not sure that was necessary, given the everything else. What do you mean that's not everything else? You want to hear about the technical aspects? Dog, I'm begging you. Dog, I can't do this anymore. We gotta stop. It's not enough. I can't.
Nah, dude, come on, we're almost done.
No, please, just let me go. I can't.
Nah, it's the story. We gotta finish it. And how about the exposition delivery? Normally we talk about this kind of stuff with the rest of the writing, but in this case the problem isn't really the writing. Well, it is, but it's the chibi interludes specifically that set off the alarm bells. It feels like being shown a slideshow in middle school science class. I'd much rather watch something happen and learn about it that way than have it lectured at me like a school teacher.
We've already mentioned the camera before, but it bears repeating because it's emblematic of the lazy nature of this production. Before, at least, it was pretending to show us what the main character was interested in, but now it betrays the interests of the creators, which is to sexualize a bunch of straw women.
Would you be surprised if I told you they didn't keep track of the LP count? You shouldn't be. It jumps around all the time, way too much to keep track of. Not that it really matters since this whole system is hand-wavy bullshit anyway, but it's nice to know that even the team making it didn't care.
Do we even have to tell you that the fight scenes suck? They're static, lifeless, uninteresting, pedestrian, but you knew that. There is the sequence with the T-pose in that one fight. Comedy. Can I ask you a question? Not like a hyperbolic or rhetorical one either, or a real one. Who is this show for? I don't want this to come off as mean-spirited necessarily, though I do despise the type of person to defend a show like this. Let us explain.
This show isn't for kids. We can agree on that, right? Because of all the sex stuff. So why is every plot point explained to us on a diagram with chibis? And all the jokes feel like they're for kids.
And as for adults, my confusion is twofold. One, we should be able to handle a narrative that's subtle. Good writing and good technicals are core sources of joy for a decent piece of media, and nudity alone should not be enough to carry a 12-episode series for us.
And second, if you are the type that's just here for the nudity, I have something that's going to blow your mind. Pornography is all over the internet, and shitloads of it is free. You don't have to settle for garbage like this if you just want to crank off.
Even playing devil's advocate, if I were someone that wanted this has diminishing returns. There's only so many times that this dude can get pulled into somebody's chest before it just becomes a snooze.
And yet this is the show that keyboard warriors and Funko Pop aficionados have decided to defend with comments that would have been cringe 5 years ago, let alone 2. Fortunately, there's people with some decency left to criticize them, but as a community, we need to be more aggressive in our rejection of things like Hidden Dungeon.
Yeah, so it's bad. In very obvious ways, and uninteresting ways at that. So we'll stop here for posterity and our own sanity. I want to do as little of scrubbing through this show for examples as humanly possible.
If you're looking for a takeaway from this review, women are people. Yep. Hot takes only here on Locked in a Room.